my family always celebrated a lot of holidays. It started with the Jewish holidays, most of which can be summarized with a simple few sentences. They tried to kill us, they failed, let's eat. It started with apples and honey for Rosh Hashanah, moved on to candy apples for Simchas Torah, and then potato latkes with applesauce for Hanukkah. Finally, we got to the dried carob called Boxer for Tu B'Shvat, in case you didn't like them apples. then we moved on to the poppy seed pastries called Hamantashen for Purim, matzo ball soup for Passover, cheese blintzes for Shavuos. See, if our enemies hadn't managed to kill us, the cholesterol was going to. Now, my parents had mixed feelings about assimilation, but they wanted us to be American enough that they took the same approach to most American holidays, though they didn't always quite get it right. It wasn't that strange that our 4th of July hot dogs came from Hebrew National, or that the St. Patrick's Day corned beef and cabbage came from H&I Kosher Deli. It was a little bit odder that the Thanksgiving turkey was stuffed with a stuffing made mostly from matzah, but I don't know other people whose families made a point of having breakfast from Union Bagel for Labor Day, or insisted on pancakes with log cabin syrup for Lincoln's birthday. Those American holidays also came with decorations. Mostly those were cardboard cutouts that were taped to the windows of the house. We started with things like cupids and hearts for Valentine's Day, and we went on to leprechauns with their pots of gold for St. Patrick's Day. The most elaborate ones were for Halloween, where there were skeletons with fully articulated limbs that you could move up and down. The limbs weren't taped to the window. There was also table decor, things like ghost-shaped candles for Halloween and salt and pepper shakers in the forms of turkeys. There were mountains of greeting cards that got sent as well for Valentine's Day, Rosh Hashanah, and Christmas. In fact, there were so many cards that my parents decided that it was wise to invest in the Hallmark Corporation. We even celebrated the holidays that we didn't celebrate. Easter, we went to a neighbor's house to dye Easter eggs. For Christmas, we went next door and we decorated our neighbor's trees. My mother went and baked lots of tree-shaped cookies, which she decorated with green sugar crystals. And actually, we celebrated a lot of those holidays twice because our neighborhood had a large Greek population and their calendar isn't quite the same. And then, of course, it was the year that two of my Hebrew school classmates and I stood in line to go and visit Santa. Well, when I went off to college, I had enjoyed these holidays, but I realized how much work they were. So I went to doing the very minimal amount of celebrating I felt comfortable with. I went to a Passover Seder, I lit my Hanukkah menorah, but I ignored most holidays. By the time I graduated from school and I'd moved to Los Angeles, I was very big on the anti-commercial view of holidays. I even refused to send my mother a Mother's Day card because that was just giving in to the commercial interests. Instead, I went off during Christmas to Las Vegas, a place where every day is the same as every other. But Los Angeles has events where normal cities have weather. And so in 1992, riots broke out when 4 policemen were acquitted of beating Rodney King. It was horrible sitting at home, watching TV, and seeing car windows being broken on the road that I normally drove home from work. Right after things had quieted down, one of my neighbors gave a party to celebrate the National Guard leaving our neighborhood. I began to understand a little bit about celebrating survival. 2 years after that came the Northridge earthquake. My neighbors were all safe, but there was lots of damage in the neighborhood. And we celebrated by spending the morning eating ice cream on the front porch because it was going to melt without power, and drinking the bottles of wine that hadn't been broken in the quake. That was as much of a celebration as any of those platters of smoked herring and chopped liver that I'd had growing up. So I began to understand why we needed to celebrate survival, and I began to enjoy holidays again. Los Angeles being multicultural, I got to learn about even more holidays. I learned about ghost money for Tet, colored water for Holi, sugar skulls for Dia de los Muertos. It was great, but I also wanted to give back to some of my friends and do some celebrations too. But everybody had already gotten a lock on all of the normal holidays. So I started looking a little bit deeper for things to celebrate. National Dice Day involved a party in which I served finely chopped up vegetables and decorated my house with fuzzy dice. The decor for Mail Order Catalog Day was handily provided by LL Bean and Sears Roebuck. And for Teflon Day, I sent my friends cards hoping that they would stick around. They were very indulgent, by the way, and in fact, I've been told that people actually do look forward to my annual Sherry Lewis Memorial Lamb Chop Dinner for Ventriloquism Week. Well, at the end of October, my hometown, Island Park, New York, was devastated by Hurricane Sandy. Now, my mother's house had very minimal damage, but several of my childhood friends have lost almost everything they own. I was really pleased, though, to see that just a few days later, people arranged a late Halloween trick-or-treat party for all of the local children. And there were tons of free Thanksgiving celebrations, barbecues down at the railroad station, and in fact, just this weekend, there's a Fuck You Sandy party at the local ale house. Because it seems that no matter who or what it is that tries to kill us, they failed. So let's eat.